Hello, it's Real Sankara Hours. Real Sankara Hours. Follow us at Sankara Hours on Twitter. This is me, Adam Hudson. Follow me at Adam Hudson5 on Twitter.
And this is Peter MGunn. Follow me at MGunnPeter. I've been, I guess, part of unemployed quarantine is getting drawn back into Twitter fights or something. I don't know. Twitter's getting wild again, and it's
Yeah.
the sort of revanchist counter-revolutionary Biden people really feeling themselves today.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's really scary, honestly. Those people are really scary.
Before we get into that, I just want to make a quick announcement. So our RSS feed is up. So we are on Spotify. We have an RSS feed. You can also follow us on Podbean. That's where we're hosting our RSS feed. So I've been getting a lot of questions about like our RSS feed and all that. So it's finally up and running. If you follow our Twitter, I pinned the link. Also for this episode, I'll just put the Podbean link just for I'll try to put the Podbean link on all our episode show notes so that people can easily follow us on Podbean and get the RSS feed directly from there. We're on Spotify, working on getting on iTunes. Apple iTunes is a weird kind of Byzantine process when it comes to
it's very weird.
Yeah,
I think they do it on purpose just to kind of weed people out.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's just some kind of quick house cleaning for people who are wondering, and especially so you can stay up to date with all the stuff we have, because we have a lot of great episodes. So if you want to stay quickly up to date, just follow us on Spotify. Our Podbean is really useful because you can follow us on Podbean, download the episodes from there, get our RSS feed. We are on SoundCloud as well. You can follow us on SoundCloud. And of course, what's most important, Patreon. Support our Patreon. If you support our Patreon, $5 a month, you get bonus episodes. Twice the number of episodes, $5 a month. Patreon.com/Real Sankara Hours. And yeah, Peter, why don't you tell them what they're gonna get?
Yeah, we just recorded an episode going through The Weapon of Theory by Amilcar Cabral, who was a Pan-African guerrilla leader and theoretician. That was really great. It's a really great thing. We'll be doing a lot more of that kind of stuff, going, deep into theory and like Fanon. I think we're doing next week about revolutionary art. I mean, honestly, that's where a lot of the good stuff is. So I would recommend subscribing to get that.
Yeah. So www.patreon.com/Real Sankara Hours. If you donate at least $5 a month, you get access to our bonus episodes, including, again, like Peter said, the episode on Amilcar Cabral, Weapon of Theory. I thought that was a really good episode that we recorded. It's a really fun episode. So, yeah. So anyway, that's I just want to make the kind of housekeeping announcement, because I've been getting, again, questions about our RSS feed, and how much. And again, I'm gonna make an effort to put our Podbean URL, our RSS feed link, and all that, so it's easier for people to stay up to date. So anyway. With that said, speaking of the Biden people and why they're feeling themselves, the reason why they're feeling themselves is because Bernie Sanders dropped out of the race.
Well, technically, he suspended his campaign. Which is not necessarily the same thing as dropping out, but he'll still be on the ballot, I think, or something.
Yeah, he'll still be on the ballot to collect delegates. So
you can still vote for him, assuming they even have any primaries, which I don't really understand what's going on with all of that. But yeah, there are people who are trying to do. I've heard some people trying to be like, no, like we can still try and make it a contested convention. There's not going to be a convention, you guys. I can call that one. They're gonna have 15,000 people zoom in all at once. Um,
Man, wouldn't that'd probably like crash the fucking server, right? I mean,
yeah,
to get all those
yeah.
people on a Zoom meeting, 15,000, like the amount of bandwidth and power
Well,
you need.
I mean, knowing the Democratic Party, they would try and create their own server, and then it would somehow end up like blowing up the entire server farm.
Yeah, probably shutting down the power, right? I mean,
Yeah, and then cause a blackout in Milwaukee. Real tech geniuses running that shit.
I mean, they did a really great job with the app in Iowa, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, real great job. So the kind of left, the Bernie Sanders supporters base and the broader left is kind of like in collective mourning. I have a lot of thoughts, but Peter, why don't you start? Because what's your sort of take on the situation?
I think I'm not surprised. I think we all knew this was coming, and
Yep.
I'm almost relieved in the sense that like now I don't have to hear about as much about election bullshit because there's like literally gonna be nothing to talk about. I think whatever kind of sort of media games the Trump and Biden campaign will try to play will, take a backseat to the obvious pandemic. I think that I think he dropped out now because they were probably like, well, we have to keep having all these primaries because Bernie Sanders won't drop out. So I think true to form, he did it to save lives because he's like almost a little too selfless, or
Yeah.
I don't know what goes on in that man's mind. It's not really worthwhile to think of Bernie Sanders as like the man, and more just like as an avatar for a phenomenon in America. But it sucks, honestly. I'm not happy about it, but I'm much less happy about the triumphalism and the reemergence of the care lord libs who I swear like they enjoy voting for people they don't like. There's some sort of masochism involved where like they don't feel like they're allowed to really vote. They're like, yeah, no, I don't like Joe Biden, but I'm going to vote for him. You're damn right I will. I'm like,
it's so fucking weird. Like these people,
he's a fucking brain dead predator, dude.
They're like people who take pride in eating shit. Like they're just like, I love doo doo. I just love all this doo doo in my face. I'm gonna vote for Biden because he's just doo doo. Like it. Yeah. There's something that's like what kind of like these people. Well, they have no principles. That's the thing. They have no principles at all.
Well, they're the people who they're very principled because they're PMC and they love rules. But it's like they're the kinds of people who would like go to the shit restaurant and get served the bowl of shit and then like send the bowl of shit back because there's like a hair in it and like yell at the wait staff for not getting, or like the bowl of shit was too cold or something. Right. But like for them it's like they still want to eat the bowl of shit for some reason. I don't know. I don't really care as long as they don't try and do that. You are complicit. You are, you're basically voting for Trump and crap. Because like if you actually care about unity or whatever, then you really need to stop that shit. I mean, like they're like, because we'll just stop listening to you because you don't have any power actually.
Here's another stupid argument that they usually say because like again, like we were saying in the last episode about Biden, the past 4 years when it comes to the kind of liberal to progressive to left energy, a lot of the energy wasn't really focused on actual issues that are going on in the world and in the country, and people weren't really focused on like, okay, what with this kind of unprecedented open white supremacist neo-fascist and Trump and as president, what kind of society are we going to build? How are we going to work toward it? Like that's not where the left energy was. It was a lot of it was like this sort of, and for fair reasons, I get it, but like a lot of the energy was how to get rid of Trump. Trump is the most evil person. He's existential, and if we can just get rid of Trump, things will be great. Well, I mean, the problem with that is even before Trump, even, as I explained about Obama's foreign policy, Trump is largely continuing the Bush-Obama post 9/11 counterterrorism, endless war foreign policy. So Trump isn't really a huge break from the system. So there's that. But another thing, like, people will say, when they say like a lot of these sort of professional managerial class kind of libs, right? Like, they'll usually say, I'm in solidarity with people of color, and, it's such a privilege for me to not be worried about how Trump is. So if I vote for Biden, even though he's bad, I'm acting in solidarity with people of color because Trump is so bad at people of color.
Yeah.
And if you don't vote for Biden, you are privileged. Okay, that is privilege. You need to check your privilege. I'm like, I'm gonna let's shut this shit up. Like, I'm black. Okay. Like, if all these like white liberals want to do this, like, I'm in solidarity with the people of color, blah 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 blah. Like, I'm black, okay? I've been black for my entire life, and I'm gonna tell you this: like, I've never really felt safe in America, regardless of who's president. And people forget Black Lives Matter started under Obama. Okay, so even under Obama, there are still countless numbers of black people being murdered by the police with no justice. So, if you're black in America, like, your personhood is always under siege, so to speak, right? Because that's the reality of institutional racism. So it really doesn't matter, like, this, like, that's why I don't feel like, I mean, I don't want to water down like how bad Trump is. Of course, he's a horrible, despicable president, but that doesn't mean that I, as a black person, am somehow more safe under a Democrat, because that's not how. I don't like. Yeah, like, just having Biden as president is not going to make my life as a black person improve that much. That's not. It won't happen, because the system itself is built to subjugate and oppress black people and people of color. So it really doesn't matter in terms of whether or not you vote Democrat or Republican. It's not going to change that fundamental systemic reality. You might get maybe a little bit of relief, I mean, so to speak, but even with Biden, I don't think he's not even a lesser evil. So that argument doesn't work.
And it's also like one of the real problems amongst sort of the liberal body politic is basically, and it's because they have convinced themselves that they're the smart ones, so they can never admit that maybe they're being suckers about something.
Bingo.
And so, it's not even really about like, oh, is there like relief, or like, will Biden be less bad? Because like these things operate in a, sorry to use the word, dialectic. In the sense that like there's a reaction to, so, whatever Biden does. And also, like, yeah, I'm sorry, but fuck all the people who, like, use, like, the kids in the cages at the border as, like, a shield to make you or me, like, feel, to claim that, like, we're, sort of not serious, or, like, bad people, or our politics are disingenuous. Yeah. I know I've done more political work than these people.
Well, also, where the fuck were they when Obama was deporting people, huh? Where were they?
I mean, they may have been there, tepidly or something. But my larger point is like, none of these people have an answer for Tom Cotton, or they don't understand that like Trumpism is here. Like, it's like that is the current iteration of the Republican Party. It is, and that's not going to change. And like the worst thing that's going to happen is that, you'll get a competent Trump, which is, like Tom Cotton or Josh Hawley or some of these other people, what, I don't know which one it's going to be. They're all kind of interchangeable, pudge-faced, like demon spawn. But yeah, though, one of those people who like straight up will just talk about like the most psychotic shit, are ready to like go to war with China right now, like the real fucking thing. Because there are some apocalyptic people like in and around the Republican Party who they want the war. They want like, they think America is only good when it's like at war. So the Democrats don't have any strategy for that. They don't have any strategy to permanently sideline the Republican Party. Liberals, I don't remember who said this, but there's a quote where it's like, the definition of a liberal is someone who is too broad-minded to take his own side in an argument. And I think that's how a lot of these people still operate this way, or it's like,
yeah,
they would never even dream of, while Republicans would have no problem with America being a permanent Republican one-party state, Democrats would never even dream of such a thing, much less sort of work in a way to actually eliminate their political opponents.
Well, and this actually gets into my reaction. And again, I'll repeat because I know this kind of argument's going to come up, and I just want to say it again. Like, if people are going to use, like, especially white liberals, they're going to use, like, the solidarity of people of color, and, like, this is why I have to vote for Biden because I support people of color. That's all bullshit, okay? It's bullshit. I'm not listening to it. I don't take it fucking seriously. And yeah, I'm speaking as a black person. I get tired of when white liberals pull that guilt shit because it doesn't do anything. They
also invariably, to a T, like, everyone who says that, like, makes more money than I do. So I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Right, exactly. And again, I'm gonna repeat it again. As a black person and as black people in America, like, the Democratic Party is not our friend. The Republican Party is not our friend. This entire two-party system is not our friend. It's not our friend, and it's never been structurally built to work for black liberation or to protect the well-being of black people in America. So it doesn't, at the end of the day, you might get a tiny bit of relief under Democrats, but fundamentally, like, the personhood and the sanctity and the well-being of black people collectively is not safe and is not protected under either party. So again, and that's why I brought up Black Lives Matter. That was under Obama, a black president. Yeah, so even under a black president, black people were still being killed by the police with no justice, and he didn't do anything. Like, the Obama administration did nothing except release some report confirming what we already know.
No, Adam, that's not fair. They had a commission, they had a task force, and they studied, and that's the best thing a liberal can do is form a task force. And
and what the task force did is it told the police department to check their privilege. That's what it did. Told them.
And hold implicit bias training with cops with swastika tattoos.
Right. Yeah, so again, like, when people want to bring up that argument, I'm just like, look, like, being black in America, I know for a fact that, like, my personhood is not fully safe because I'm living under perpetual systemic racism. So, like, voting for Democrat doesn't change that fundamental reality. Theoretically, you might get some relief, but the fundamental reality does not change. And the fundamental reality, sure as fuck, will not change with Biden in office. I mean, people should listen to the episode we did about Biden, but, I mean, that guy's got to start working with segregationists. And so again, if people want to pull that card, like, sorry, it's not going to work. But my reaction to, I heard about the news, like, when I woke up, and I heard that Sanders dropped out. I mean, my immediate reaction was like, oh, I didn't think he was going to do it right now. I thought he would have waited a little bit, like maybe till the convention, then drop out, and but
I was definitely under the impression he'd like wait through the primaries, but I'm sure the media was going to start blaming him if anyone died from a primary. It was going to be Bernie Sanders' fault because when it's not Russia's fault, it's the left's fault.
Yeah. So I have some thoughts. I mean, I'm not surprised he dropped out. I just didn't expect him to drop out this soon. But I kind of saw it coming, and I think I remember saying this in an episode we recorded like about a month ago. About, like, if Bernie Sanders drops out, like, where does his base and where do his supporters go? So I think Bernie Sanders did a good job of being a gateway to left-wing ideas in politics. I think he did a good job of that, and I think that was important, and I think it was important to broaden the left-wing community to people who otherwise probably wouldn't be exposed to those kinds of ideas. So I think that's good. And to people who are, Peter and I have been on the left for a while now, and as if there are people in the Sanders campaign who are feeling, down, I say, welcome to the left. we're used to losing. So, but
we know it well.
We know it well. So, but I say, like, we welcome you to this broad family that we call the left. So there's that. I don't want to be like, haha, I told you so. That's what you get for working the Democrats. Like, okay, yeah, but not people's political evolution is different. So I'm not gonna, try to call people stupid for thinking that
some people got to learn the hard way, or they have to go through the experience.
Yeah. And so my thoughts, I kind of wrote down some thoughts just to kind of get off my chest, but I do think that Sanders' loss, honestly, this is going to be a bitter pill to swallow, but I think it falls on him. Before you blame anyone else, it falls on Sanders and his campaign, but primarily Sanders. And this is why. I'm gonna explain why I think the Sanders loss falls on him. One, I don't think Bernie Sanders had it in him to win. I don't think he really had it in him to be, to really take power and win the presidency. I don't think, it didn't seem like he really wanted it. I think if he wanted it, he would have fought a lot harder. And I that's why I'm surprised that he dropped out so soon. I thought, like, he could have at least, like, fought through the primary to the convention. Just in kind of, I've been reading about, like, stuff going on in his campaign, and just my general assessment is, I don't think the Bernie Sanders campaign did enough to broaden the coalition to people outside of the campaign. And I think, I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Like, I think Bernie Sanders could have done more to reach out to non-voters and people who were generally shut out of politics and think politics is stupid and it's bullshit because they don't see it improving their lives. I think those people are largely up for grabs and could be far more susceptible and friendly to progressive ideas than MSNBC watching centrists. But it seemed like, from what I understand, the Sanders campaign was more focused on trying to get 30% in each state through the primary. I'm just giving a general assessment. I don't work in campaigns, but this is just my general assessment. And also, I think the Sanders campaign not even just the campaign, but a lot of his supporters, I think, probably underestimated the degree to which the electorate was largely concerned with getting rid of Donald Trump and not quite on agreeing with a certain list of policies. And I think that's why a large number of people went for Biden, because I think, like, people just had that. A lot of times when people vote, like, they're not thinking about, like, which policy I agree with and da-da-da-da. Like, they're usually, most people who are average voters don't think on that granular of a level. I think, again, the past 4 years throughout corporate media and in the mainstream media has been like, Trump is an existential threat. He's evil, blah, blah, blah. And so when people vote, the first thing that's going to be on their mind is who's going to defeat Trump. And I think Bernie Sanders early on should have made the case that he was the guy to defeat Trump, not Biden or anyone else. He should have made that clear, like, I'm the guy to defeat Trump. Because I don't think he won people's confidence on that electability front. So I think there's that. And a few other things. Two more things. Another thing, and then the most important lesson. The most important lesson is going to be last, but one more thing, and then that one. I think Bernie, he was just too fucking saying shit like Joe Biden is my friend. Like, I'm sorry, he kind of shot himself in the.
That shit made me hot.
Yeah, like, he should have never, because he wanted to have it both ways. He wanted to say, I'm going against the Democratic establishment. Well, who is that? He never named any names. And then when it came to people who are clear members of the Democratic establishment, like Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer, he's like, no, I'm not going to go after Biden. He's my friend. It's like, okay, you can't have it both ways. You have to, like, if you're going to say I'm going against the Democratic establishment, you got to go at Biden hard. And he didn't. So now we're stuck with Biden. And the most important lesson that I really want to hammer home, and like I said, someone who's been in left politics and spaces for a while now, this is the conclusion I've come to. The most important lesson is, look, like the assumption that working within the Democratic Party to advance progressive ideas, that's false. Like the Democratic Party entryism, I think Bernie Sanders and his campaign, I think, were banking on that it would be possible to work within the Democratic Party machine to advance progressive to social democratic ideas. And that was always a very flawed premise and assumption from the start. And I think Bernie Sanders losing and dropping out is proof of that, because as we said in a couple episodes before, the Democratic Party establishment was pretty hell-bent on undermining him and making sure he didn't win the nomination, especially early on when he had good momentum. They were hell-bent on making sure he wouldn't win the nomination. And I think, like, if you understand the Democratic Party and how they function, that makes sense. Because the Democratic Party, structurally, is not a party for the working class. Structurally, it's meant to protect corporate America and the petty bourgeoisie. Right? So, again, I'm going to say that again. The Democratic Party is not a pro-worker party. It's not a progressive party. It's really fundamentally a corporate party, a petty bourgeois party that makes some concessions to multiculturalism and window dressing when it comes to labor. But for the most part, structurally, the Democratic Party is built to protect the interest of large corporations and the petty bourgeoisie. So, and assuming that you could advance social democratic policies that do threaten those interests, thinking that you could advance those ideas within a party that's built to protect corporate interests and petty bourgeois interests, those things are irreconcilable. You can't like they're always in conflict with each other. So one side's going to win. There's no way to meet in the middle between corporate interest and socialist or progressive interest. So when you have a party that's structurally built to protect corporate and elite interests, there's no way that we're going to let someone like Sanders win. So there had to be a plan B, like I said in one of the previous episodes. Like, okay, if Sanders loses, what's the plan B? And this is where we're at now. And I think that the left, we need to take that seriously. So I think, like, for people who are sad, it's okay to be sad. Like, I get it. Like, and I genuinely feel bad for all those people who campaigned for Sanders. Like, God, they must feel like shit. Like, I feel bad like that, because Sanders, like, built up a lot of people's hope, provided a lot of hope for millions of people, and to drop out of the race like this, it's like, that's a huge defeat, but it's also, I think it's important to be a little more sober in our analysis of the situation, and just acknowledge that, look, the Democratic Party was never going to let him win, and we need a plan B. So that's just how I feel. I think that's to me, that's the most important lesson, that, like, trying to work within the Democratic Party to advance progressive socialist ideas, it was never going to work, and gotta do something different.
Yeah, I think I'm on a couple of minds about the campaign. I think, actually, sort of ironically, I think he might have been able to win just because he's a very capable politician. That if he had just ran a straight insider, like, traditional campaign and, didn't sort of, because what they were trying to do, especially this time around, is sort of make it like a campaign movement, wherein, like, instead of just, like, sort of sucking up the, all the oxygen from, like, energy around social movements that are going on in the left. I mean, that happened to some degree. I mean, there was a sincere effort to sort of, fuse the campaign into, like, existing labor struggles and social movements and stuff. And I think that what they did, I think that was successful to some degree, and I think that's something worthy of study.
Yeah.
Because that was very interesting, and I think that's a good way, for the left, broadly speaking, to approach electoral campaigns, if that's kind of the direction we want to go. especially sort of in the hyper saturated media era. But yeah, overall, the deck was stacked heavily against him, and I think that trying to do an outside, he could have either done like a purely insider campaign or a purely outsider mercenary campaign where he, was going to purge half the Democratic Party and not really talk to anyone or make any deals, and just like do it all on his terms. I think, and just have said fuck everyone. He tried to, he kind of got caught in the middle in that sense, and I think, part of it is just like that is actually his style of politics. He's been successful because he's been able to basically work alone, but like sort of, leading a group, a campaign is basically like a corporation, and, doing that kind of sort of executive activity is not necessarily a strong suit. So I understand that, but still, I think, in the sort of final analysis, I think there was actually a point where he could have won after Nevada. That was when everyone was scared. And, I remember thinking, and I largely held my tongue during the campaign because that's, part of what message discipline is about, is, is not like popping off like when things are at their hottest, but there were a couple of things that I noticed were curious. One, of course, was the way he like hung Zephyr Teach out to dry for calling Biden corrupt. And the other one was basically that he didn't fly to he wasn't in South Carolina at all, basically after Nevada. And he didn't even try to press Clyburn to not endorse anyone. Like Harry Reid didn't endorse anyone. And that was a big reason why he was able to win Nevada, just to like gum up the machinery a little bit in that way and not get blown out in South Carolina. I think that because they were scared at that point, and, South Carolina made them able to sort of reestablish, get their narrative back on track. And then that provided the basis for, the call from Barry or whatever to do the House of Cards shit. That moment right there, before that, for South Carolina, I think that, because I remember watching The Hill, and there was some, stupid Dem op but what he was basically saying, like, if Bernie wins South Carolina, the whole race is over. And, they didn't see South Carolina as a strategic necessity, I think is the thing that I would really hang on them as like an oversight, because fine, whatever, it's hindsight. And I understand that, like, at the time, like, you literally have to build everything and you have limited resources. And that we are looking back at things, but we're looking back at things with the purpose of drawing lessons. So it's not about like blaming people as much as it is about, that's why they call it a science.
Right. Yeah. And like, again, like, I totally, like, in the moment, I think, the things that Bernie Sanders' campaign did, like, I don't, like, they made sense. Like, I'm not going to, say that everyone in the campaign was like, oh, they're all stupid, I know the answers, because, like, I'm trying to make sense of it just like everybody else. But I do think that there are some, just looking at this big picture wise, I do think that there are some important lessons to learn for the left going forward. And I think it's important to learn those lessons, because I don't think it's a good idea for all that Bernie Sanders energy and his supporters and his base to just get sad and have that energy not go anywhere. That's a bad idea, and that's something I don't want to see. I don't want to see all those people who work their asses off to get to canvass for Bernie Sanders and all that energy that's built up. That energy can't just go nowhere. It has to go somewhere. And I think in order to move forward, it's important to, I think, again, to just have a sober analysis. And, I'm not trying to like point fingers and assign blame, but yeah, Peter, you're right. This is basically a science, right? Like, if you have a science experiment, you run it, and the experiment fails, doesn't go the way you expected, then you look at it, okay, what happened? What led up to this? And so I think even when it comes with South Carolina, the rhetoric with that, even as we talked about before, was like the Democrats made that the black people primary. Like somehow, like all the opinions and feelings of Black America is summed up in South Carolina. Like, and so it's like, okay, Bernie Sanders loses South Carolina, he loses all black people. Forget the fact that there's black people in Chicago and Detroit and New York and Oakland and Los Angeles and everywhere throughout the country, right? Like, oh, okay, like those black people don't exist. They all exist in South Carolina for some reason. Okay, so the South Carolina primary was like supposed to be the black people primary. That's all bullshit, but that's how it was fucking framed. That framing's stupid. I do want to talk about, just make a quick mention of, because I think like there's another warning I want to give is like, I don't want people to blame black voters for Sanders' loss, because I can definitely see that happening. Because it's like, okay, Bernie Sanders lost South Carolina because black people voted for Biden and Jim Clyburn, and so like that becomes a proxy for like, okay, then that means all black voters are stupid and they're all conservative and blah blah blah. It's like, wait, hold up, like listen, no. Put the brakes, all right, before you say that shit. I said this in the last episode, and I'll repeat it again, and I kind of want to make it a recurring point in this podcast is, look, the reality is there is no organized black politics in America, period. Doesn't exist. You have black people who vote, but that's not black politics. And what I mean by that is there is no organized, independent black political voice and body politic that exists that answers directly to the needs and political aspirations of black people collectively. That is black politics. I'll repeat it again. Like, in order to have black politics, you need an independent, organized black political force that answers directly to the needs and collective aspirations of black people. That does not exist. What we do have are black people and black elected officials in the Democratic Party. That's not black politics, and I'm going to explain why that is not black politics. And this applies to why the Jim Clyburn endorsement should not be seen as like a political representative of black people collectively. The Democratic Party, like I said, is structurally meant to protect the interests of corporate America and the petty bourgeoisie. Structurally, the Democratic Party is bolstered by the very forces that oppress black people and bleed black people dry. Large corporations, real estate, even big tech. We can go down a list, but the kinds of the institutional corporate forces that back up the Democratic Party are the same forces that keep black people collectively in a state of misery and a state of collective suffering. So you can't have black politics in conjunction with the party that works against black people's interests. Those things they're antagonistic. They don't go together. It's not black politics. You can have black elected officials in the Democratic Party, but that's not black politics. In the same way that like you can have black people elected as Republicans, but that's not black politics. Okay, so and I think that's really, really important. There is no organized black politics. There used to be black politics in the 60s, 70s, and even to some extent in the 80s. I mean, you had like, obviously there's a Black Panther Party, but then there are people like Ron Dellums and Jesse Jackson with the Rainbow Coalition. Like they had some accountability to the black community and did represent black collective political interest, black collective interests. Like in the sense that, those kinds of politicians came organically from the black community and had progressive politics. But that doesn't exist anymore. There really is no organized black body politic. It's all been sucked into the Democratic Party machine, corporate media, academia, and like there's barely any black professors in academia. And again, academia is a pretty conservative institution. And also the nonprofit sector. That's not really black politics. That's black people in certain positions within the social, economic, and political system. Okay, that's cool. You have leaders and spokespeople. That's not black politics. It's not organized bottom up black politics. That's not what that is. So, before people started assigning blame to black people, you have to recognize that fact that there is no bottom-up organized black body politic. So as a result, black people's rage kind of goes in different directions. So it's like, okay, like some black people aren't going to vote. Some of them are going to vote Democrat. Some of them are going to vote for Biden. It's all over the place because it's not organized. So if you're reaching out to black voters, you have to understand that reality. There's no organization. A lot of it got killed by FBI and COINTELPRO and got sucked up by the system. Co-opted very, very easily by nonprofits, Democratic Party, and elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Black Lives Matter, represented sort of that spark, that possibility, but it was very, very quickly overrun with, foundation grants and, sort of the nonprofit industrial complex, specifically with the purpose of co-opting it and smothering it and integrating it back into the Democratic Party. When that was, fucking Jay Nixon was a fucking Democrat, people. Every city's murderous police department has a Democratic mayor. So
yeah, like I've been to plenty of local city council meetings when it comes to gentrification and police violence with black and non-white elected officials, and a lot of them routinely side with police and real estate. So again, that's not black politics. And again, I'm glad you mentioned Black Lives Matter, Peter, because I do remember like that was actual like organic black politics. It was organic rage from the black community collectively against ongoing systemic police violence, and it went nowhere. It wasn't organized.
Yeah, I even remember like very specifically like them having. I think Al Sharpton wanted to show up to some event or something, and they like kind of shouted him down, and there was very much a struggle that this wasn't really covered by the media as much, but if you were sort of more tuned in, you would see that like there is very much a struggle against sort of those legacy kind of black institutions, NAACP, National Action Network, that kind of stuff. There was a generational struggle in the sense of like they understood those institutions as to presenting obstacles in a way for them to actually reach their goals, and that's basically been swept under the rug. We may have to we're definitely gonna have to like go really in depth on that at some point, but and like I said, I'd like to make it like a recurring theme because I think it's something that needs to be dissected. But like Black Lives Matter, like that was quickly siphoned into the nonprofit sector and all that. And so like there are no real independent black institutions. The only thing that you can arguably say actually represented an independent black voice, but that really doesn't anymore, is rap music. There was actual like, especially in early rap music, Public Enemy and Tupac, like that was real organic black radical messaging, and not even that exists anymore. There's Kendrick Lamar, but for the most part, like Drake. Come on. The politics. It's not a coincidence that the politics has left hip hop, or at least now they're still like conscious rappers, but they have like generic liberal politics. Like, I listened to the new Jay Electronica album. He actually came out with his debut album like 20 years later. What they bury the lead is that it's basically a Jay-Z album with a lot of Jay Electronica features. But it's completely apolitical until the end where they're like, they got kids at the border and, cops are killing us, right? But it's not, if you compare it to like KRS-One or, whatever people's problems with him, I'm still a big fan of Immortal Technique. Where like they're literally giving like political science lectures. They're like breaking down like political economy in verses, and that doesn't exist anymore, or at least it's much harder to find it. If anyone knows where to find it right now, please drop us a link, because I've been trying to find it.
So like there's no organized black politics. Aside from Drake, Jay-Z, like, look, if Black America, like, if the best we can do politically is Jay-Z and Cardi B, we're in deep shit. Like I like Cardi B, like she says good stuff, but like
Yeah,
that's not that
she
is
was on
not
board
politics.
with Bernie.
Yeah, I mean, but Cardi B, that's not black
Yeah.
politics. I'm sorry. Like, people can like Cardi B, I like what she says, but that's not black politics. Neither is Jay-Z and neither is Beyonce. That's not black politics at all.
Yeah, I mean, the whole celebrity class is just not... It's anathema, or not anathema, it's allergic, I guess, to, the actual sort of political necessities. I mean, and I don't know... I mean, I know why sort of, white corporate media wants, those people to be sort of the designated representatives for black people, but it's not like they don't do anything. Like,
no.
It's like if we assumed that like Toby Keith spoke for all, white people that lived in red states. It'd be completely absurd.
Right. Well, and what was also like absurd was Jay-Z's... What the fuck was that meeting with the NFL? Like that, like people were trying to say like, oh, he's making a deal for like what fucking?
I mean, the people, the people defending him are like sort of the, I believe the phrase is like rise and grind Twitter, where it's like, the ones who are like self-described hustlers and entrepreneurs who like think they're Garveyites, but they don't actually know anything about Garvey.
No, yeah,
and that's like being generous.
I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, and like that stuff is like, I mean, it's bullshit. I mean, what Jay-Z trying to strike a deal with the NFL, like that was just, it was kabuki theater. It's a fucking sham. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not gonna apologize for that. Like, I know some people kind of had like some hope in like, Jay-Z trying to strike a deal with the NFL. Then it was like, oh, we got to boycott the NFL. That was all spectacle. It did nothing. Like, nothing that would come out of the NFL would have benefited black people, period. It was all bullshit, spectacle.
Yeah, there's 1,500 people in the NFL. Like,
yeah.
I don't even understand the I mean, it's a product of just like all means of political education being completely wiped out, that anyone, white or black or non-black, thinks that like the NFL like actually means anything.
It means
to Black America at large.
Even if like, Jay-Z got whatever concession he did from the NFL, like that's not gonna prevent police violence. It's not gonna prevent police from killing people. Like the NFL,
it wasn't even gonna get Kaepernick a job,
right? And it's like the NFL, they can't pass laws. Can they get they can't get police hired and fired. They can't hold police accountable. So there's no point. Like, it's all spectacle. And like that's what I mean about black politics, is that if people think that, Cardi B and Jay-Z and Drake and all that shit represents black politics, we're in deep shit. Like that it's pretty sad. It really is. It's sad.
Adam, I have a question. Do you think the election of Obama represented that death of black politics?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm gonna be really blunt, yes. Yeah, I'd say so. And I'll explain why. This is, man, I can go really in depth with this, but I think, but I'll try to tie it in with things that are going on. But the reason why I think the election of Obama really signaled the death of black politics is because since the late 60s, early 70s, black politics, I think, was kind of at a crossroads. And what I mean by that is, like, you had the groups like the Black Panthers, Black Liberation Army, like those groups that were basically a lot more radical in their advancements. Yeah, Marxist and revolutionary in their black politics. And their politics was really a fusion, I think, of like national self-determination for black people and anti-capitalism, and that was largely the milieu of the time. Like, if you were like a black or non-white radical, like usually your politics were that, because they're all those liberation. Yeah, and it's also, I encourage people to check out our bonus episode on Cabral, because I think this would really contextualize what I'm saying. All like if you were a black revolutionary at the time, like you were pretty much like, that was part of what was going on at the time. So there was that, and then there was also, I think, the other part of black politics was basically like, okay, we got the Civil Rights Act passed. The best way to achieve black liberation is integration. Integration, desegregation, And integration, I think, like the discourse on it, I think people forget that segregation was really had a class element to it in the sense that, like, the reason why segregation was in place was to keep black people in a lower economic position. That was the point of segregation. So what happened with desegregation is that you got rid of segregation, but you didn't get rid of you didn't really empower black people from that position. Like, there was no critique of the capitalist system. So, and basically what it wound up being is like, okay, this is basically like I would say a liberal, reformist, integrationist approach of black politics. And I think there was some time in the 70s where that latter part of black politics, like the liberal reformist part, won, and the militant wing was largely snuffed out by the COINTELPRO and the FBI. Like, they played a huge role in imprisoning and downright assassinating leaders like Fred Hampton, right? So, and also the war on drugs and the prison system played a huge role in weakening and decapitating the black radical movement. So
yeah, if I just want to add something about integration, is that sort of what I think, what usually gets left out, is that alongside the Civil Rights Act was supposed to be the Fair Housing Act, which would have solved sort of the problem of ghettoizing, of redlining, and that kind of stuff, which sort of in the sense, and this is sometimes a common refrain in the barbershop and such, is that, like, yeah, integration is bad, and that, like, all the middle class people moved out of black neighborhoods. A big reason that certain neighborhoods declined precipitously is because the Fair Housing Act got completely gutted and was never enforced. So there were some legal rights, but even during the civil rights era, even during the early 60s, I mean, they understood that it's not just about lunch counters, it's about the entire political economic system. And but of course, right, the concerned liberals, they were upset about the lunch counters, but they could, the whole calling into question all the political economic structure. I mean, they couldn't really do all that. They didn't want to deal with all that. So it's important to understand the history of the Fair Housing Act and basically how it got completely gutted, and how that was a big contributor to the persistence of residential segregation and, the quote-unquote decline of the inner city.
Yeah, and I mean, Dr. King, toward the end of his life, was calling for, when he was assassinated, he was, marching with sanitation workers. So he was Dr. King at the end of his life was a lot closer in his views to Malcolm X.
Yeah, I've heard that, like, in private, he would, if he was talking to, like, Marxists, he'd be like, yeah, no, I basically agree with you.
Yeah.
He was always very, it's amazing actually how, sort of message discipline he was. He never red baited, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, and so to answer your question about Obama, I think the election of Obama is basically the ultimate conclusion of that approach. Because if the idea of black politics is like, okay, the way to get black liberation is just integrate into the system, don't challenge capitalism, don't do anything to, like, get fair housing and eliminate redlining and all the economic structures that keep black people in basically a perpetual underclass. It's like, okay, like, that approach, like, they're not going to do anything about that as long as you just reform the system, pass some legislation, like, when it comes to making sure, like, people don't explicitly discriminate. That if that's the approach of black politics, then the ultimate conclusion is having a black president. That's the ultimate conclusion of when you take that approach, and Obama was the ultimate conclusion of that approach. And like I was saying earlier, Black Lives Matter happened under Obama. That approach did not take care of, one, the systemic violence within police departments throughout the country, and Obama didn't do anything about that. So there's that. There's still, especially after, this is another part of stuff I typically write about, which is gentrification and the wealth gap. But after 2008, after the financial crash, because a lot of blacks and Latinos were again also racially discriminated against when it came to banks and lenders trying to make them buy a lot of these subprime mortgage loans, which got wrapped up into derivative markets and then basically laid the foundation for the 2008 crash. A lot black wealth was wiped out. So even the gains, even the little bit of economic gains that black people made after 1965, that was all wiped out after 2008. So even with Obama in office, like that was not enough to fix those underlying systemic and deep structural and economic issues.
The material conditions of Black America had not changed for 50 years.
No, and if anything,
got worse.
If by 2050, if the same policies are in place, black wealth will decline to zero. So I do think that, because all the black political energy was focused on protecting Obama at the time and not criticizing him, black politics it killed it. And that's a bitter pill, I think, for a lot of people to swallow, including a lot of other black folks. But I think, look, I'm not alone in saying that, because I know other black people who probably wouldn't say it openly, but if I were to tell them what I'm saying, they'd agree. I know a lot of black folks who feel that way, but it doesn't really get said openly. But I'll say it. I think the Obama presidency really killed black politics, and now we're at the point where we have to rebuild it.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, and I remember thinking about this at the time, is that it sort of represented the apotheosis of that kind of liberal integrationist project, and there was nothing else to do. I mean, it was basically we did it. It's kind of funny, speaking of Tupac, right? If you think about the song Changes, right? Of all the things that he lists, right? The only thing that's changed from 1996 is that we had a black president. War on the streets and war in Middle East. So war on poverty, they got a war on drugs, right? All that stuff. All that's still going on, but the black president changed. And if you told someone in 1997 or 98, I guess it's actually when the song came out, though, I think whatever.
I think he recorded it in 96, but it came out after he died. So yeah.
Or the verse technically, I think, was on a different song, and then they put it on Changes. But anyway,
okay.
If you were to tell someone in 1998, of all the things that are listed in that song, one of these things will be different. Which one do you think it is? They would have never said that one. But I mean, we pulled it off, and that was, I mean, Obama was really when sort of liberal identity politics went into overdrive, because I mean, really before then, it was still pretty radical stuff. I mean, talking about, white privilege was pretty contentious. I mean, and I know this because I was in Unitarian anti-racism workshops at the time in 2006, 2007, admittedly in mostly white surroundings, and those white kids, and these are, very liberal kids, right? Of course, they fucking hated talking about racism. They hated acknowledge, having to deal with white privilege and all that stuff. It was very contentious. And, when people would say, I mean, that was sort of the caricature movie dialogue of the righteous brother, was that kind of discourse. And that person was always in the movie for comic relief, right? So it's fascinating. So on some level, it's I guess when you look at things dialectically, it is that, people, we have to go through some things so we see their shortcomings and then we can learn from them. But that, I agree that those sort of legacy institutions that were just doing victory laps for 8 years never adapted to a post-Obama era.
No, and I don't even think, I mean, to be fair, I think black politics was in decline before Obama. I think Obama was sort of the nail in the coffin.
It's the juice, it was the last hit, the last power up before you lost the game.
Pretty much, yeah, that's the Obama years. And And I think that also ties in with the state of left politics, because I think, as I said in the Biden episode, after Occupy, there were no like actual left institutions that were built, or and it's the same with Black Lives Matter. Like, it all got sucked up into the nonprofit sector, and then well, what do we have to show? More police violence? Like, what did that lead to? Like, some commission
body cameras, Adam. That's all. They solved everything.
Yeah, and I think probably a couple more cops probably read Bell Hooks or something. They read Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm pretty sure one cop probably read Ta. Yeah, that's the change. They all
the one cop who's like trying to hit on some black girl while he was on the job would be like pull up in the squad car reading Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yeah,
because they're reading scumbags like that.
Yeah, he's reading Between the World and Me or something.
Detour. I was thinking about I mean, basically, right, like, black neighborhoods are police states, but the whole like sort of video category of like the cop who shows up to play basketball is like completely sociopathic. It's insane. It's insane the degree to which that's just normalized.
Yeah,
I guess I was thinking about this because, like, if you go to like a any sort of like big store in a working class area, right? Like, there's like much more security there, and it's like, working class like neighborhoods are always much more policed, and it's just normalized, right, compared to rich neighborhoods. But it's it's not just that like the police are always there, but then just this whole concept of like they have to, not only do they have to sort of appear friendly, but then it's like, oh, actually the cop's gonna talk smack, and it's like, the cop will do a hard check, right?
Well, it's like like where I live, like near Bay Point, California, like there's a ton of private security at the Safeway, because there were a couple robberies, but I mean, that area has always been poor. But it's like the police, like, they're, I mean, from their very inception, and even our prison system here in America, like the inception of it was largely meant to, suppress Black people, Native Americans, and the poor. So like that's a huge part of the police department's institutional culture. But also, police are, this is something that's like so American, is that we use police to deal with social problems. Like, so what I'm talking about, like near where I live, that that area has always been poor. It's not like, hey, let's improve the economic conditions of the area. No, we're just gonna have police in this because the reason why people rob the fucking Safeway is because that area is poor. So it's like, it sucks, but it's like you're living in a poor neighborhood where people are desperate. Yeah, you're gonna get robberies.
And it's like cops do the job of social workers. They said that, cops get sent on welfare checks. Like, if you're going through a mental episode, the last thing you ever want to see is a police officer.
I mean, that's how oh my God, the one woman in there's a woman oh my God, there, as someone who's been covering police violence, even I forget the names of people who get, because there's so many of these cases that happen of people who are just murdered by police.
If I may offer a bit of a hot take, I got a little tired of like having
Tatiana Jefferson. That's who. Yeah, sorry, Tatiana Jefferson in Dallas, Texas. Yeah,
I got a little tired of having to like learn all these different names, and I always felt that like there was sort of this kind of like signaling of like, I know all the names, and that's really what it's about, is knowing every name. And it's like, and I mean, look, I understand sort of the messaging, the rhetorical goal behind it of like humanizing these people in a world where like Black death is routinely normalized, but I also felt like it kind of avoided like systemic conversations because it always ended up just being about an individual case.
Yeah, and it's also like I was talking to you about this for I think a day ago, but like, I mean, people have been talking about wearing masks in public because of the coronavirus, and public health reasons. Yeah, it's good to wear a face mask, to prevent the spread of it. But then people have been talking about oh, well, it's a privilege for white people to wear masks because Black people can't wear masks because, like, if Black people wear masks, they're more likely to get shot by police. It's like, okay, yeah, as a Black person, I understand that, but it's like, this sort of misses the point, because the point is not the mask. the point is, why are police so violent in the first place? And also, why do we have over-policing in a time of a pandemic when we should be having more testing and doctors? What's the point of having police like do that kind of heavy enforcement? That's the problem.
Arresting someone not respecting social distancing and then putting them in jail definitely increases their risk factor.
Right. It just makes it makes the problem worse. So the real like, cause like of course, yeah, like, when people say have a conversation, it's like, yes, have a conversation, but like
no more conversations.
Like, but it's also important how you frame the damn conversation, because if people want to have conversations, fine, but at least frame it right. And what happens with these conversations, like, okay, we're going to focus on the mask. So what's the solution? Then black people don't wear masks, and then that makes us more likely to die, because the race of coronavirus deaths for black people is already pretty sky high. So we're gonna make it worse for black people by I don't see where it goes. Like,
then they would just criminalize not wearing masks, and then you get arrested for not wearing a mask. So,
which again, like a lot of times these conversations ignore the heart of the issue. The heart of the issue is like, okay, why are we over policing during the time of a pandemic? That's the issue, because when you over police, cops are going to, yes, act heavy-handed with black people. Because like I said, policing black people, indigenous people, and poor people is a huge part of institutional police culture in America. That's a problem. So when you have police deal with a pandemic, yeah, they're going to act that way toward black people.
I mean, that's why a lot of them became cops in the first place.
And also, like, you know, even before this pandemic, even without a mask, like, black people's lives are still in jeopardy. So the mask is not going to change it. That's what I mean. It's so American. Like, there's something very American that, like, we're not able to think about systemic issues. It's always like focused on the most like minute individual things.
Well,
and I think, and that's something I get tired of, particularly in the context of this pandemic, when we should be thinking collectively and systemically. But no, we got to focus on individual shit.
Well, it's a product of a very specific op-ed genre, and it is like basically because this was like written in the I think I saw in the Boston Globe, which I was like, of course, like Boston is the epicenter of like liberal self-conscious racism, where it's like,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, living in New England, it's a bit of a trip. I mean, I don't live in Boston, but Boston is like so notoriously racist, but also like extremely liberal. So it's really like the testing ground for all the like liberal and yeah, because Boston's also foundation land. So it's really the testing ground for all the like liberal institution, like, you know, fake solutions and all that shit, you know, discourse, innovation, I guess. So of course it would be in the Boston Globe, where it would be like, yeah, no, but today I can't wear a mask and I just need these white people to think about this and check their privilege when they go out wearing a mask and not thinking about it. And it's like, oh, like, what does this accomplish? I mean,
again, it's like black people are dying at sky high rates because, like, systemic racism in America is a public health issue for black people. That's why we have high blood pressure, and that's also like what links to higher death rates for coronavirus, because one of the risk factors of coronavirus is, you know, heart factors and heart issues and stuff like that. So you're already dealing with black America, which we already do have very, very serious public health problems within the black community because of systemic racism. Then you add the reality of a pandemic, and like, yeah, like, you're gonna get higher deaths because like, look, being black in America is like, it's health, like, mentally taxing, and it's going to impact our mental and physical health. And so it's like, the issue's not the fucking mask, like, because we should wear the mask because we like everyone else, we should wear masks. It can mitigate the spread of coronavirus. So with a population of people in America, like black folks, who are more likely to die of coronavirus, we should wear a mask, because it could say, I want black people to live. Like, if I see a black person wearing a mask, I'm happy, because, like, you're gonna live. I want black people to live. And I don't want ongoing over-policing and police violence as a way to deal with that reality. And that should be the focus. It's like, why are we over-policing during the time of a pandemic? The issue's not the mask. We should wear masks. The problem is the police. Why are police so trigger-happy? Let's focus on that, if we're going to have a conversation.
Yeah. We're at an hour 10, So
Yeah.
I feel like we should wind down.
Yeah. I'll just, one of my more final points. Because again, I wrote down some stuff because there's stuff I wanted to get off my chest in context of COVID-19 and Bernie losing. But what I was saying about Democratic entryism is a failing strategy. Like, look, it's being in left circles. I've been hearing that stuff a lot, and so I think this is why I feel the way I feel. I've heard this stuff again and again, and it's like there's this very sort of short-sighted vision when it comes to the left. Is like, okay, the way we advance progressive causes is like we have to elect this particular Democrat as president or in this office. It's like okay, but it's like, well, one, what's the long-term vision that we want to accomplish? No one asked that question. And two, like, okay, if working within the Democratic Party doesn't work, what's the alternative? And my feeling has always, for a long time, has been there need to be actual strong left-wing institutions, like strong tenants unions, strong workers unions, industrial unions, workers cooperatives, independent media apparatus, workers councils, parties, things like that. We need actual independent progressive power to do anything, and we have not done that. All the energy got sucked into trying to capture the Democratic Party. It's like, at this point, I just want to say, the left, progressive, have been doing that for a long time, and look, we gotta switch gears because that approach has not worked. We have to do things differently, especially in light of a pandemic. It behooves us to think differently and do a different strategy. So, for me, it's not about trying to say like we're smarter, but it's like I've been in the left a long enough time to learn certain things, so that's where I'm coming from. That I think this is an important lesson for the left going forward. That it's okay to be sad that Sanders lost. I get it, and honestly, my heart goes out to all the Bernie Sanders canvassers and supporters and the people who worked hard to try to get him elected. My heart goes out, and I salute you for the hard work you put in. But I do think it's time to shift gears, and we gotta do something different. Work to build actual left-wing and progressive institutions to build power from the ground up. And I would say the same thing for Black politics, because speaking of NAACP, when I was in college, I was involved in NAACP, and to be honest, they don't really do much. And the same frustration I feel about left politics, I feel about Black politics. And I think for me, the way going forward, now that Black politics is where it's at, we have to build it from the ground up. We can't give up. We can't be in a situation where we just think it's normal that Black people die at higher rates because of coronavirus. Like in a place like Chicago, which has 30% Black population, 70% of the deaths of coronavirus deaths are Black people. That's unacceptable. We shouldn't live in a world where that's normal. I don't want to live in a world where that's normal. I don't want to live in a world where police violence against Black people is normal. So if we're serious, and if that's something we're serious about, and we want something better, then we have to change our approach when it comes to fighting for that. And for me, this is one of the few times, one thing that is actually nice about the podcast is I feel a lot freer saying what I think should happen, because as a journalist, what I like being as a journalist is I get to just try to report the facts, and I like just reporting facts because I think it's important just to get facts and truth out there. But for this podcast, I feel a little bit more open about saying what I think should be done. And I think what should be done for Black politics is you got to build independent Black politics from the ground up. Independent Black media that's not owned by corporations. I'm looking at you, The Root.
But also Radio 1. That's a Black-owned corporation. It's still corporate media.
Yeah. So we need, we need to do Black politics from the ground up. And I think if we're serious about, the issues that plague Black people when it comes to, again, the really high rates of coronavirus deaths, and also, look, a lot of the essential workers, fast food workers, and people who are doing essential work during this pandemic are Black. Okay, so there are a lot of Black people who are risking their lives and their bodies to make sure this society functions, and they're putting their health at risk. So yeah, I want a better future for Black people in America and for Black people globally, and I I want things to be different. You know, I want a better world for Black people and everyone. And if we're serious about fighting for that, we have to do some soul searching and see like, okay, this hasn't worked. We gotta change our approach. And my final analysis is that Democratic Party entryism and trying to capture the nonprofit industrial complex hasn't worked. We have to try something different. That's not to say I don't want to besmirch the work of individuals who work in those kinds of sectors and the work they do, because I think there is a lot of good work that gets done there. But again, if we're honest, we have to be honest about like what works and doesn't work. And I think trying to work within the Democratic Party that, again, is institutionally meant to protect corporate and petty bourgeois interests, which are antagonistic to the interests of working class people and Black people and all other marginalized people, it's not going to work. We need an independent body politic that represents those voices, and we got to build it from the ground up and build institutions from the ground up to reflect those interests and push them forward. So that's how I feel.
And do it quickly. We don't have time to waste.
The climate change, we got to do it quickly. Like, climate change is not waiting for us. So.
Yeah, as soon as we're allowed to go outside again, I think initially we wanted this episode to be like a little more, about how we're like personally dealing with, quarantine situation. Yeah, but I mean, I'm glad. I think we covered a lot of good ground today.
Yeah,
I've been working on, I guess, like kind of a personal writing piece, and it's kind of made me, I guess, a little more reflective, introspective. Also, just like I'm literally just like sitting around at home with nothing to do, basically. So I have a lot of time to think when I'm not numbing my brain, so I don't have to. But it's going. I went to the grocery store today. Like this was the first time that they really enforced everything, and that was a very strange experience, having to like wait in line and knowing that like you may not be able to find everything that you're looking for. I mean the grocery store is supposed to be sort of this it's like the set piece of the bounty of American capitalism, so it's very and I always think about that, especially when I'm like depressed in grocery shopping or hungover or sleep deprived, which is I guess pretty frequently. But it's now I'm like, now there's like nobody there because there's a bouncer, right? And so there's only 75 people allowed in the grocery store at one time, and that is really not that many people for like your average supermarket. And it's very strange, like the one, they play all the like early 2000s, like adult timber. Like I walked in and Who Stanks the Reason was playing. And like, going about your shopping experience, but like during a pandemic where like you're like trying not to touch anything, be around anyone. It's very weird. I'm starting to get a little bit of a sense of like what this actual period in my or anyone's life is going to be like, and what the effects of it are going to be, at least on a personal level, and also because you can't really know the entire society-wide effects, but at least how I'm approaching it personally. And you won't entirely know like what its effects are, but I am feeling like I'm trying to use this time to sort of, I guess, I don't want to say do internal work, but I mean I have to focus on me because there's nothing else to focus on. So. No, thanks for sharing. I've been in quarantine for a month because the Bay Area we shut down pretty early, and I stopped going to work right when I heard about the cruise ship docking in the port of Oakland. I told my supervisor, I was like, I'm gonna work from home, and a few days from that, like we basically shut down anyway. So I've been in quarantine. I've been. At this point, I'm used to it, and I think I think the like to sort of, I guess,
mental, like how you mentally get used to the quarantine is different for everyone, but I do think, at least from my experience, like there's a weird, like it's initially weird and shocking and kind of scary, but then as time goes on, like if you give it a couple weeks, you kind of get used to it and you ease into it, and like you, as a drummer, like it's like, you know, you settle into a new rhythm or new groove, right? Like after, like initially, like when you play the song, you play the groove, it's like, okay, this is kind of weird, it's kind of weird, and you play it a few times, like, okay, I got the groove, I got the pocket. So I think at this point,
we're in the quarantine pocket.
Pretty much, yeah. Like we switched from one time signature to another time signature. Now I'm in the quarantine pocket. It's different genre, so I'm kind of used to it now. So I started writing again. I haven't been writing since when I graduated. Well, I hadn't been writing for a while, but I think the last major writing I did was my MFA thesis, which turned out to be 197 pages, which I was proud of myself for finishing it, but damn, that took a lot. That's the most I ever wrote.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah, it was 197 pages, and 20 of them were footnotes. So actual text was, yeah, say around 175 pages.
Was that like what, 50,000, 40,000?
Somewhere around there. I forgot. I had to double check. I just remember the page count, because when I saw that page count, I was like, holy shit! I wrote a lot, but I wrote it in chunks over the program. So it's like I wrote, chapters separately during each workshop, and then I compiled them together and edited them, and then it came out to 197 pages. So I'm writing a blog post. I'm trying to work on a blog post about the COVID-19 crisis and the I think this sort of unprecedented shake in the global economy. So I'm working on that, and it's nice to just write, just write. So I've been doing that, and been working on music. So yeah, I'll make another kind of announcement. So if you want to follow my solo music project, which is mostly just West African drumming, I'm trying to mix in different instruments, because I have I have in my room, I have 2 djembes and a calabash, which is like a melon. It's a large melon, but if you hit it, it's like a percussive instrument. It's a very large melon. It's from, actually, this calabash I got is from Burkina Faso, which ties back into the name of our podcast, Thomas Uncle. So I have a djembe from Ivory Coast, another djembe from Mali, and the calabash is from Burkina Faso. So like a nice little Pan-African sort of cultural reunion in my room right now. So I'm trying to sort of experimenting with recording the djembe in my garage and getting that sound. And then I want to mix in the calabash, and I have a pair of really nice sounding maracas. So that's what I've been doing lately. So if you guys are interested and want to follow that, I'll include a link to my SoundCloud in the show notes, but look me up on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/AdamHudson5, same tag as my Twitter tag. So all my music's there. So yeah, this quarantine, I was talking to a musician friend of mine, and he was like, yeah, this will probably make us all better musicians, because that's all we can do is fucking practice.
You have to, yeah.
You kind of have to.
Yeah. Whenever I ordered a XLR to USB cable, I'm gonna probably record. I'm gonna have to bust the bass out, because I already have nothing else to fucking do. I haven't really touched it since I've been here, but hell, might as well.
Yeah.
I really want to play music.
I've been you should actually, Peter, you should check out Gnawa music. Gnawa people from Morocco. They play an acoustic bass called the Sintir or Gumbri. It's all bass driven. So there's a bass player, I think you'd like it. It's hella dope.
Yeah, you gotta send me some playlists.
Yeah.
I don't because I don't know where to start with all your flamenco stuff.
Paco de Lucia is good. There's this other guy named El Chalo who's in Granada. There's like videos of this guy named El Chalo who's a flamenco guitarist. He plays in Granada, which is like really where like flamenco started.
As in Reagan invaded Grenada?
No, not not that Grenada. So the Grenada in southern Spain that is very close to Morocco, the southernmost part of Spain. Anyway, this El Chalo is a Roma ethnic group, flamenco guitarist. He's really good. Paco de Lucia's very famous flamenco guitarist. Those are good starts. Ganawa, I think Hassan Mahmoud, I think that's his name. Hold up, let me look it up. And this will be for you guys who are just looking for shit to listen to. Wait, hold on. There we go. Yeah, Hassan Hakmoun. He's a Ganawa musician, bass player. Hella dope. One of his bands, it was cool. Like he mixed like traditional Ganawa Moroccan music with rock and roll. It's pretty sick. Like he hooked up he got his acoustic bass but kind of electrified it. Like you know how you can like sometimes with acoustic guitars you can hook it up to an amp and like you make it sound
yeah. They're you can put a pickup on an upright bass.
So he had one in his his is it's called there's two names for it. You can call it a Sintir or a Gumbri. But it's an acoustic. The body of it looks like a box, and then there's a stick, and it's a bass instrument. So, but the riffing style sounds very similar to blues music. So, Hassan Hakmoun is really good. Paco de Lucia. I've been getting into his music a lot. El Chalo. Chalo, El Chalo. If you look him up on YouTube, El Chalo Flamenco, like the dude is just fucking
Google wants to take me to El Chapo, which I'm not.
Yeah, so I've been listening to that kind of music and working on my own like independent music. It's something I've been meaning to do for a while, and I've been going to open mics. I used to go to open mics physically before the quarantine, but now with the quarantine, I've been doing these virtual open mics. So yeah, like mostly through Instagram Live and Zoom. And that's actually, to be honest, like that's been helping me get my spirits up because even though you're not face to face, just having that sense of community, it's we're social beings. Humans are social creatures, so any chance to build community, virtually, I think is really important. So, that's why I've been dealing with it. And yeah, we hope you guys are keeping your spirits up. It's tough. I mean, I go through ups and downs, but it's, we can and must pull through this. That's all I have to say. I don't have anything else to say. Do you?
Yeah. No, I'm pretty much set. Stay tuned. We're gonna start bringing guests on.
Yeah.
So you won't have to just listen to us ramble for an hour and a half.
Yeah, we're gonna have a guest on hopefully next week. If not the week after. And yeah, we're gonna assemble some guests to come on. And so patreon.com/real Sankara hours. Follow us at Sankara hours on Twitter, and then I will put our Podbean link, which is tied to that's where our RSS feed is hosted. So if you click on our Podbean, it's easy to follow our RSS feed from there. So, and we're on Spotify. We'll get on iTunes soon. And yeah, stay safe, stay healthy. Try to keep your head up and your spirits up.